The investigator in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, or I should say an investigator, Sergeant Mogola, will continue her testimony at the High Court in Pretoria tomorrow. It follows an adjournment just earlier due to the counsel for accused number 3 not being present in court. Meanwhile, a lawyer for accused number 1 says he intends to subpoena Kelly Khumalo. Let's bring you some legal analysis now with Melusi Xulu. He joins us for more on some of the drama that took place today, Melusi. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on. And I mean, the judge in this case is visibly annoyed, and it's been happening for some days now, right? He wants people to be more prepared. He's very annoyed now with this adjournment just earlier on before we came to you, because the lawyer who's representing the actual attorney for accused number 3 didn't have any questions for the investigating officer who was on the stand. He says that's unacceptable.
I think the issue is this case has been, going for some time. Remember, this is the second judge that is handling it, and there's pressure from the judge president that the matter is finalized. So I think his frustrations are understood, but these are some things that happen in court where everybody doesn't pitch up all the time due to some reasons known to them. So I understand his frustration, though, that the matter needs to go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Shall we talk about the elephant in the room, this new testimony that's being led, or this new version of events that's being led by defense counsel in court? This version says there was actually a fight that happened in the house before Senzo Meyiwa was killed. Longwe Twala allegedly was the person who had the gun. It went off. It hit him. It also hit Zandi. But, of course, the fatal shot hit Senzo Meyiwa. How do we place this in the greater scheme of things and the evidence that is before the court on the version that's before the court? And that is the version that intruders stormed into the house.
Yes. I think if you've been following this case, whether through Netflix or news reports, you know that Mr. Senzo Meyiwa, the brother of Senzo Meyiwa, has mentioned for some time that there was a call that came from one of the people who were in the house, I believe it's Tumelo, who called his sister and said, Usenzo, translated as Senzo has been shot by mistake, meaning someone shot him, and I think he was trying to say Long shot him. So I think we've heard that version outside court, but now it's being introduced in court, and it's being dealt with in detail, where there is a statement that was done by Senzo Meyiwa. So he's going to come and possibly testify when it's time for that. So it's important, Michelle, that whatever version that the defense has in the defense of the accused, it must be put. So that's why it had to be put in detail, because remember on Friday, he asked that the matter is postponed so that he has a statement and he can put it to the investigating officer in a chronological manner as he did yesterday.
Right. This docket 375 also making an appearance a number of times in the cross-examination, in the questioning that was taking place in court today. Defense advocate Zandile Mshololo really sort of taking to task Sergeant Mogola. Sergeant Mogola, just for the sake of our viewers, came onto the case as an investigating officer 4 years or so, right, after the murder of Senzo Meyiwa. Do you think that the questioning was quite harsh? I mean, she chose to not comment on a number of questions, Sergeant Mogola. Is that acceptable from her? Was the questioning quite harsh, given that she came onto the case 4 years after the murder itself? Or should she be up to speed, despite the time she came onto the case?
Well, she finds herself in a mess already, Michelle, because here she comes in, she's coming to investigate based on a case number 639, I think, of 14, which is the docket that we're dealing with now. And then there was also a second docket which came in, and this was a problem that was created by the state, to be quite honest, because where have you ever heard of one scenario or one crime scene having 2 dockets? So when she has to answer, she'll obviously answer to, if you may, to one faction that she belongs to, because if you look at this, it was just a factional battle amongst or between the police officers, because you've got a detective investigating one of the suspects, and then you've got another one investigating the ones that we have in court. So I think from where she's standing, I understand why she could not answer, because she found the mess that was created by her superiors.
So how do we make sense, as people who are following the case, how do we make sense of docket 375? Should it even form part of the questioning then in this case?
Well, docket 375 was more specific to say the people who are in the house, there's something that is missing. And when the advocate who drafted that opinion drafted it, he wanted them to be charged so that at least it can be clear what happened on that note. So I think this is a question that NPA has not answered, or SAPS. They've not given us clarity why they had 2 docket copies, and why for 375 of 19, if I'm not mistaken, why those people have not been arrested. Because I think the most important thing here, Michelle, is what happened in the house. We don't have an answer. We can talk about confessions and all of those things, but we need to know from the people who are in the house what happened. So I think from where we're standing as the people who are not involved in this case, it's difficult to make sense of what is happening.
Yeah.
Now, here's the problem, if you may allow me, Michelle. Whenever there's a criminal case, it must be proven beyond reasonable doubts that that specific offense occurred. So now, how many versions do we have? We have a version where there are intruders. We have a version where there's possibly Longwe who shot Senzo Meyiwa. We also have a version where it says that Kelly Khumalo was the mastermind. So there's a lot of versions, and it leaves us confused. But the challenge of the state is they must prove beyond reasonable doubt.
Certainly. And speaking of Kelly Khumalo, her name is coming up more and more as the case progresses. In fact, today, a number of times, there were 2 specific questions that defense advocate Zandile Mshololo had related to Kelly Khumalo. The one was around the warrant of arrest issued for Kelly Khumalo and why that application for the warrant has not yet been authorized. The investigating officer says she doesn't have an answer to that question. And then the other question is around the fact that there's evidence before court that there was communication between Kelly Khumalo and at least one of the accused before the murder took place. And there's a question around whether that Section 205 has been actioned. I don't think there was an answer to that either. But the name Kelly Khumalo is now, it's very much a part of the questioning that we're seeing.
Yeah. Well, before I come to the issue of the warrant and the phone calls, we heard, I think, last year that she would no longer be a state witness for this case, because for docket 639, she's a witness. So the state said they will not call her, and that raised suspicions because we wanted to hear what happened in the house through her, but also there's obviously a 375 where she's put as a suspect. Mm-hmm. Now, coming to the warrant of arrest, Michelle, we hear that it was going to be issued, but the powers that be decided not to do so. So I think the NPA and the SAPS, they will have to let us know at some point why she was not arrested, because she was a suspect at the time. But with the cell phone part, I think it's suspicious that she made phone calls to one of the accused, I think accused number 5 to be specific. But the issue is, what was the content of the conversation? It's just very suspicious, but if you can get a content where maybe it's specific that she was sending in a WhatsApp or an SMS to say he must arrange other people to kill Senzo, that could make it a strong case for her arrest. But I think just phone calls is just suspicious, but what was the content of the conversation? That will assist more.
Yeah, legal analyst Melusi Xulu, it's a great pleasure talking to you. Thanks for giving us some clarity on the case, which has now adjourned for the day. It resumes again in the High Court in Pretoria. Melusi, thanks very much for your time.